Welcome to the Emotional Readiness Series, Session 1. I'm Terry Rose, and I am glad to be here with you today to discuss the concept of emotional readiness and how, seen from the baby's point of view, can help bring depth and power to the work that we do with young children and families. The information that's presented in this series is also available more in depth in my book, Emotional Readiness. Many of the stories and the research on which these concepts are based can be found and referenced throughout the book. Today we would like to focus on school readiness. It is a concept that is used in many, many different places. We hear about it in the newspaper. Many of our programs are dedicated to improving the readiness of children to enter kindergarten, and many of the benchmarks that we're seeing for later success or not success in school have to do with how prepared children are when they enter kindergarten. It's interesting that there is no national measure of school readiness. In fact, we don't have a way to address is a child prepared for school in a way that academics and practitioners agree. Part of that is because 4- and 5-year-old children are developing in multiple domains, from fine motor to gross motor, cognitively, linguistically, and that development can be somewhat uneven, very typically in 4- and 5-year-olds. The other thing is that we're often looking for a quick measure of kindergarten readiness or school readiness. And it's hard to capture the multiple levels of development in a quick measure that would say, yes, this child is prepared for kindergarten. Now, many districts or states have developed their own measures of that, but again, there's no national measure of kindergarten or school readiness. In a 2004 poll, kindergarten teachers were asked what would they like to see in their students as they enter kindergarten. That is, what would they like, how would they like young children to be prepared to come into kindergarten. They were given 24 indicators of preparedness, and they found all of those indicators to be very important, and it was a wide range of things that would indicate developmental success and progress. Most interestingly, though, the top 10 had very specific areas in which the teachers felt that were really important. The most important measure that the teachers all rated was that children entering kindergarten are physically healthy, well rested, and well nourished. That is, their health considerations were taken care of. The next 9 indicators that had the most marks as kindergarten teachers wanted that in their young children had to do really with the social and emotional development of young children. Kindergarten teachers want children to come in who are not disruptive to others. They want children who are able to control their own bodies, who are able to positively interact with other children and with the teacher. They're able to share their perspectives and participate in group activities. Kindergarten teachers want children to be able to follow directions. The top 10 is rounded out again by issues that have a lot to do with social and emotional development. Kindergarten teachers want young children who can communicate their thoughts and their needs and their ideas verbally. They want children who are excited to be in kindergarten and to learn new things. They want children that can pay attention, not for long periods of time, but really for what we see kindergarten children, 4- and 5-year-old children, or 5- and 6-year-old children, should be able to pay attention to the directions that teachers are given, to participate in activities, to listen to a story. They want young children that can participate in their own self-help skills. And they want children who are able to negotiate the social complexity of being in kindergarten, being able to share with others, being able to take turns, those social situations that occur both in the classroom and on the playground. The top 10 things that kindergarten teachers want really have to do with emotional readiness. That is, are children socially and emotionally prepared to be in a group setting with one teacher who's going to lead the group of children through a course of activities and interactions and play, and that those children are prepared to be in that setting, to get along with others, to pay attention to what's going on, and to be excited to learn new things. It's interesting as we look at kindergarten readiness and we see that many, many children are unprepared for kindergarten. And we've actually known about this for a long time. Head Start was originally developed in the 60s and 70s as an anti-poverty campaign, noticing that children that came from communities where there was less financial resources were also unprepared for the basic skills that they would need in kindergarten. And therefore, Head Start was started. There's lots and lots of focus, particularly currently, on reading by third grade. And most of those efforts focus on literacy activities that can be done with children in childcare or early education settings that would help prepare their literacy skills so that they would be successful by third grade. Pre-kindergarten programs have been around and successful, and there's lots of interest in having pre-kindergarten programs become part of the public school, again, giving children an extra boost of academic skills so that they can be prepared to be successful not only in kindergarten, but also be successful throughout their academic career. And home visiting. Home visiting initially started as an opportunity to help parents be better prepared for the job of parenting. We do see that home visiting helps reduce maltreatment by improving parenting skills. And in many cases, home visiting has been used to increase the literacy skills and the academic preparedness of young children so that they are entering school prepared. Unfortunately, not only is there a gap in students being ready for kindergarten, there is a gap that we see that persists through third grade and fifth grade, ninth grade, and high school graduation rates. We're looking at very wide achievement gaps in children who come from the majority culture versus cultures that are not non-majority, and that we are still trying, despite all of these efforts, to solve how do we help children be successful in school. There's the authors of Freakonomics have come out with a new book, Think Like a Freak. And in the book, what they do is they encourage whoever's reading it, whether it's policymakers, families, organizations, to use the same strategy that they use in their original book, Freakonomics, and that is to change the way the questions are being asked, possibly to find solutions to problems that have been difficult to solve. So in our case, we would be looking at school readiness. How do we prepare children for school? So as we change the way questions are asked, if we look at what was written about in Think Like a Freak, what we see is they took a question that was given by a professional eater, a person that entered the contest to see how many hot dogs he could eat in a minute or 5 minutes or whatever it was. And in this particular case, the professional eater was trying to eat more hot dogs. So what the authors from Freakonomics said is that the typical question is, how do I eat more hot dogs? Very similarly to how do we get more children prepared for kindergarten? In changing the question, the authors of Freakonomics feel that that's where you find these innovative solutions. So in the case of competitive hot dog eating, they changed the question to be how to make hot dogs easier to eat. When the question is asked in that way, rather than how to eat more hot dogs, how to make hot dogs easier to eat, there were a variety of solutions that came up from asking that. One was to separate the bun from the hot dog. 2 was to dip the hot dog in warm water. Now, I don't want to get too much into competitive hot dog eating, but what was interesting is that by changing the way the question was asked, different solutions emerged. And what they found is that the professional hot dog eater not only was able to eat more hot dogs, he actually doubled the world record of hot dog eating. So our question comes, how do we apply this concept of switching the question to school readiness or kindergarten readiness? So the new question is not how do we have more children ready for kindergarten, but how do we make it easier for children to be ready for kindergarten? How do we make it easier for children to be ready for kindergarten? So how do we make it easier for children to pay attention, to have an appropriate attention span? How do we make it easier for children to get along with others, to have good peer relationships, to be able to navigate social situations? How do we make it easier for children not to be disruptive, to be able to sit at circle time, be next to their peers, and listen to the story or calendar or lesson instructions that the kindergarten teacher is giving? How do we make it easier for the child to follow directions, for all of the kindergarten children to be able to be directed by the teacher, be cooperative, and be engaged? And from my point of view, what I would say is what we're talking about is how do we make it easier for children to be emotionally ready to participate in the activities of kindergarten, to be with their kindergarten peers, and to be engaged in learning and excited about what the kindergarten teacher has to share. How do we make it easier for children to be emotionally ready? Thanks for joining me for part 1.